So what is gracing the September of 2024 skies? Well, we have a just barely partial lunar eclipse, the best viewing for Saturn, 5 lunar close encounters, and the beginning of fall. Hi everybody, I'm Rob, your Last Minute Astronomer, bringing astronomy to normies and nerds with little time to spare. We'll start by talking about September's big events, then highlight the naked eye planets, and finish up with the lunar phases, all so you can plan ahead better than me. All right, let's start off with one of two big events, and the first one is the less big one, and that is the opposition of Saturn. So this is September 7th to 8th, and you notice that Saturn, right around 1 a.m., because of daylight savings time, otherwise it would be midnight, but right around 1 a.m. is directly in the south, and that's about as high as it's going to get. It's 42 degrees above the horizon, and what's going to happen is Saturn is going to set right around sunrise, which means it's going to rise at sunset, which means it is visible basically all of the time. And so what you can do is use your telescope really well on this one. You have all night to do it, and eventually you can go in and take a look at Saturn. Okay. And you can see that the rings are almost edge on, and you'll be able to see the moons and such as well. But you can see Saturn. You should be able to see some cloud bands. Maybe you'll see the gap in the rings. It's just gorgeous. And the best time to go out will be when it's highest in the sky, when there's less atmosphere to look through. So 7th to 8th, although really any time this month, last month, or next month is good. It's just this is the actual point at which the sun, Earth, and Saturn are actually perfectly lined up. Then we have on the 17th, we have the just barely partial lunar eclipse. All right? So we got to get out of our telescopes for now. Oh, there it is. There is the moon on the 17th. And look at that. It is right next to Saturn during the eclipse, which is pretty cool as well. And so what's going to happen is I got to go forward. There we go. Because it was morning. Now, September 18th. So this is the 17th going into the 18th is this just barely partial lunar eclipse. So what's going to happen is the moon is going to pass into the Earth's shadow. Okay. That, sun, Earth, there's a shadow back here, and the moon gets into it sometimes. And it's just barely going to hit it. It's only going to be 8% coverage of the moon. So it's not much, but it's there. So let's start off with some times here. Okay. I'm going with PA times because that's where I live. That's around the 40th parallel, which is nice. A lot of people are also near the 40th parallel. And here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go to 8:41. That's when the penumbral portion starts. So let's zoom in on this a bit. Okay. And what you see here is you've got the umbra, which is the inner portion. And you've got the penumbra, which is the outer portion. This dark umbra, that's where if you were in that umbra, you could not see any part of the sun, right? If you were on the moon and you were in that umbra, you could not see any part of it. But if you are anywhere outside in this penumbra, you're basically seeing a partial eclipse of the sun by the Earth. So you were on the moon, you could see part of the surface of the sun, but part of it is being blocked by the Earth as well. And when you're outside of that, you can still see the full sun and the full Earth. But anyway, 8:41 p.m. is when the penumbral portion starts. Now, I'm going to be honest with you here. The penumbral portion is not that exciting at all. You can barely even tell that there's anything going on. So what we got to do is we got to fast forward to about 10:12 p.m., which should be right about there. Okay. Now, this, I think, isn't quite what it's going to look like. Okay. It's really going to be a dark little bite being taken out of the moon as we go forward. But right at 10:12 is when the partial part starts. That's when the moon actually starts touching that inner portion of the shadow, which is the umbra. Now, the other thing, let's see, this is going to last about an hour. Let's see what happens. Okay, fast forward. Oh, it's in there. And right about 1044, that's maximum eclipse. So this portion right up here that's inside, that's going to be really dark. It's going to be a pretty sharp line. It's a little dull, a little, not really sharp, but it's fairly sharp. Then the rest of this is basically going to look white. Maybe there's a little shading there. I challenge you to sort of check that out, but that's going to be pretty cool. Now that's maximum eclipse at 1044. And then about a half hour later, now it's starting to go out. Right at about 11:15 is when it exits the umbra and the partial part ends. And the exciting part of the eclipse ends, right? And then, so that's 11:15 at night. And then the penumbral portion ends way later at 12:47. Now the minutes should be the same, but the hours are going to be different based on your time zone. Okay? And now also for people in Pennsylvania, you'll see that this kind of takes a big arc, right? So if we're back at 8:40, it's kind of low-ish in the east-southeast. And an hour later, it's a little bit higher, a little more toward the south. And then around maximum eclipse, it's in the southeast, and it is 36 degrees above the horizon. So make sure you don't have a lot of tall trees anywhere. You want to make sure that you have a clear view. So that's wonderful. That's going to be a good time, and it's actually at a nice convenient time. The partiality ends at 11:15, so you can get to bed at a reasonable hour. So with all that being said, I hope you get out there and take advantage of this viewing opportunity. All right, what about those planets, those big bright dots in the sky? Well, the biggest and brightest one is Venus. And Venus is, well, maintaining its, evening presence, just a little bit. And that presence is going to last till mid-March, and it never really gets much more above 10 degrees above the horizon, right? So it'll be a little challenging to find, but it is going to be possible. You just have to look basically west-southwest after sunset and wait to see this beautiful orb come to life. And the cool thing about this, as I said last time, is that if you use your telescope, you can see it go through its phases. I'm going to show you where it is right now. Right now, it is at a mostly gibbous phase. Now, you won't be able to really see all that cloud detail with a telescope, but you will be able to see that it is not a perfect circle. Okay? And let's just go a little further. As the months go by, November, December, January, it's getting bigger in the view, and it's more of a half Venus, right? Let me zoom out a little bit. And so then February, and then March, it's gone, right? That's going to be a big shift. But in February, you can see a nice crescent Venus. So after you're out there looking at Venus, you can turn around and you can pretty much see, well, you got to wait till later in the month. Let's go a little bit forward. There it is, Saturn on the opposite side of the sky. Now, Saturn is going to, you'll have to wait a little bit for it to rise early in the month, but by month's end, it's going to be up there at sunset. In the beginning of the month, Saturn rises in the east around 8 p.m., earlier every day. And then right around sunset, it's going to rise up toward the end of the month. And it travels west throughout the night. So if you don't see it right at sunset, you got to look more south, more west. Okay. And then in the morning is when we have some interesting stuff going on as well. So let me fast forward in the daylight hours, the nice morning hours. There we go. We've got Jupiter and Mars. And of course, the moon is going to pop in there from time to time, but let's get him out of the way for now. So if you look September 1st, okay, Mars and Jupiter are right up in the east. I'm looking at 3:30 in the morning here. Okay. And you've got Taurus and the Pleiades kind of in line with that as well. And starting out the month, Jupiter and Mars are over 45 degrees above the southeastern horizon at sunrise. Let me fast forward a little bit more to get to sunrise. Ooh, there we go. Okay, see how high Mars and Jupiter are, right? Above Orion, near Taurus and the Pleiades. Beautiful good looking stuff there, right? And so what happens is as the days go by, Jupiter gets further and further away. Mars kind of stays in the same area. Let me zoom out so we can still see it all. Okay. And there we go. Mercury is no longer visible. So if you want to see Jupiter and Mars rise, you want to go out around 1 a.m. and look generally east, right? But by the end of September, Mars and Jupiter are going to rise closer to 10 p.m. So they're starting to become that whole night, all night kind of planets, right? And at this point, Saturn will have already set at the end of the month, but it's going to be on the opposite side there. Now, I should put in Mercury, but only for that first week, okay? You see September 1st, Mercury's way down there. It is 5 degrees above the horizon. Let me go right to sunrise at 6:32. So right at sunrise, when you won't be able to see it, it's 15. So if you go out, I'd say between 5:30 and 6 a.m., you might be able to catch Mercury on the first, second, third. I'd say the first week, maybe week and a half, you could find Mercury, but only the first week, week and a half of September. So again, first week, Mercury low in the east in the morning. High in the morning is Mars and Jupiter. Off in the west in the mornings, but like 4 in the morning is Saturn. Throughout the night is Saturn. And in the evenings, right after sunset, is Venus off in the west. And as far as the moon goes, our best observing is this first week or two in September because the new moon is on the 3rd. We'll then have a week of evening crescents off in the west after sunset. And then on the 11th is when we're going to get the first quarter moon. It's visible until about midnight. Then we'll have a week of evening gibbous moons until the full moon on the 17th. That's when it's up the entire night and gives us a lot of light pollution, right? Then we have a week of waning gibbous where it starts rising a bit later in the night. And then we've got a last quarter on the 24th, which is when the left half is lit up and it's visible from midnight and into the morning. And that leads us into the lunar close encounters for the month. So the moon travels across the sky, across the ecliptic, just as normal, and it passes by basically every planet on the way. Now, the very first one is on the 1st, and this is going to be really, really hard to do. It's going to be just 4 degrees left of Mercury. But again, Mercury was hard to find. The moon's going to be tough to find because it's low in the sky and it's very, very thin. But it is there. I would say after 5:15 in the morning, look low in the east. Right? But now, of course, the moon is going lower and lower in the sky. So now we've got to switch back to sunset. And we have to look west. Now, when we do that, we see the moon and Venus right next to each other. And on the 5th, the moon is just 6 degrees to the left of Venus, making this a really cool sight. I always love it because you have a little bit of the dusk happening. The sky's still a little blue. It's just dimming down. It's just absolutely gorgeous, right? And like we said, the moon passes across the sky, and there's not a whole lot on that green line, which is the ecliptic. But the moon keeps going, gets fuller and fuller and fuller. Oh, there's Saturn. Oh, here we go. All right, let's go to the 16th. And now on the 16th, you've got a full moon, which is gorgeous, and it's going to be right near Saturn. In fact, it's going to be 5 degrees to the right of Saturn on the 16th. And then on the 17th, the night of the eclipse, it's going to be about 10 degrees to the left of Saturn. So during the eclipse, you can fit your fist at arm's length between the moon and Saturn. And it is going to move west throughout the night as well. So if you're getting up early in the morning, you got to look more toward the west. So that's the 17th. And then remember, we had a whole bunch of morning planets, right? So let's go to those morning planets. Let's get them up there. And let's see when the moon passes by, all right? So let's go. Oh, there it is. Okay, on the 22nd, look at that. We've got a nice lineup. We've got the moon passing right through the Pleiades, essentially. It's actually going to be right next to it. It's just bigger in this picture. And this is the first encounter. You've got the Pleiades. You've got Taurus right here. Then Jupiter, Mars. You've got Orion to look at as well. Just really neat to see. And you can see this even at like 2 in the morning. Like this is not that late. Okay. So that is the 22nd, well, night of the 21st into the morning of the 22nd. Okay. And then we've got on the 23rd, we've got that waning gibbous right in between Jupiter and the Pleiades, right above Taurus. It's going to be a good look. And then the next night, it's going to be right next to Jupiter. In fact, 7 degrees left of Jupiter, but still 16 degrees above Mars, right? And on the 25th, oh, the moon is right above Mars, only 5 degrees. And you can see this from about 11:30 p.m. until dawn. Then the next night, there you go. We've got a waning crescent moon, and it's going to be 10 degrees below and to the left of Mars. You have to get out after 12:30 a.m., and it's going to be out there until the dawn in the east-northeast. So we've got all the planets to see this month. We've got the partial eclipse, 8%. But we've got a partial eclipse, and we've also got the opposition of Saturn. So September of 2024 is looking pretty good, pretty interesting. Also, you got wonderful night skies, starting to get darker earlier. Good time. So that is the sky for the month. If you find this advanced notice of the night sky helpful, please support this work by finding Last Minute Astronomer on Patreon. And don't forget to follow Last Minute Astronomer on Facebook and Instagram as well. So till next month, I'm the Last Minute Astronomer, wishing you fruitful plans and clear skies. Music was produced by Deep Sky Dude and used with permission.